Hi everyone, welcome to your simple diffusion notes. The first thing I want to talk about before we get into actual simple diffusion is the concept of your empathetic bilayer, which is your phospholipid bilayer having two regions. The blue area that I've colored in, this is the polar area. This is the part that will interact with water. So these are called the polar heads. And then this portion in between, this is your hydrophobic layer. And that hydrophobic layer, those hydrophobic tails point towards each other to minimize those hydrophobic interactions. Please understand that it's this hydrophobic layer that are going to prevent items or things from passing through the membrane. So it's not the polar regions, it's not the polar heads themselves that act as that semi-permeable membrane. It's the polar tails, or the hydrophobic tails, non-polar tails I should say, that will prevent items or molecules from being able to pass across. So what kind of molecules are we talking about here? With simple diffusion, the kind of things that are going to pass through are going to be small and they're going to be non-polar. So molecules such as oxygen gas, carbon dioxide gas, those are the common ones. Those are the ones that I'm going to expect you guys to have memorized. And what you all need to understand is that these molecules on one side of the membrane are going to be more abundant than the other side. So what we say is that there is going to be a concentration gradient across the membrane depending on what molecule we're talking about. So if it's oxygen, it'll be more abundant on the outside of the membrane. If it's carbon dioxide, it'll be more abundant on the inside of the membrane because of the cellular processes that produce the CO2, and then the use of the oxygen is going to make always the concentration lower inside. So molecules that are small and non-polar are going to be able simply to diffuse across the membrane. And one of the terminology that I need for you guys to know is the idea of down its concentration gradient. So small nonpolar molecules are going to be able to diffuse what we call down their concentration gradient. Please don't think that down means because we're drawing it down the picture. So for example, oxygen to diffuse down its concentration gradient would go inside the cell, but carbon dioxide, because it's being produced inside the cell as part of cellular respiration, when it goes down its concentration gradient, it's going to go out of the cell. So don't think down is the direction I'm drawing these arrows. I'm referring to in which direction are the molecules moving. So when I say down the concentration gradient, what I'm saying it's going from high to low concentration. That's what it means. So oxygen, you'll need to know that oxygen is outside of the cell, lower concentrations inside the cell, so oxygen will always move into the cell, and carbon dioxide is always more abundant on the inside of the cell, so going down its concentration means it's exiting the cell. The last thing about simple diffusion is that no energy in the form of ATP is going to be required. So no additional energy other than the kinetic energy that's involved is going to affect the rate of diffusion. But speaking of rate of diffusion, I am going to go ahead and add things that are going to affect how quickly things are going to be able to move. They are temperature. So the higher the temperature, the faster the rate of diffusion. Your concentration gradient, how much difference there is between the two. Or what we call the steepness. So the higher the difference between the two sides, the faster the rate. And then the size of the molecule. The bigger the size, the slower the rate of diffusion because those molecules are heavier. Okay, so these are your notes on simple diffusion. It's a summary of what we've been talking about over the past few weeks, starting with the structure of that phospholipid bilayer, how small nonpolar molecules are going to be able to get through. They go down their concentration gradient, in other words, from high to low, and no ATP is required, and then 3 factors that are going to affect the rate of diffusion. Thanks for watching.